Welcome to day 4. In our last
Charlie, wait a minute. We're more than halfway through the challenge.
You're right.
They're almost done.
Almost done. Almost there. In our last 2 videos, we explored digital twins, mixed reality, and even some potential process improvements and how we should all be collaborating on all of these projects. Today's videos, we're going to address the fact that there's 20 years of innovation around digital twins, but still some pretty big gaps. And we're going to talk about owners and developers, how they're driving home, how to bridge those gaps.
So we're going to show you how your projects can be part of the solution. As part of this, Joel, who we had yesterday, is going to show you a tool for turning, if you've got Revit data on your project, into a digital twin in the cloud so you can analyze the quality of the data and get scoring about how to measure your project so you can baseline it. And we'll explain that to you in detail.
After you've watched today's 2 videos, make sure you take the 10-question quiz. This is our second quiz of the week in order for you to get full credit. 3 hours, again, of lead continuing ed and, if needed, AIA continuing ed. And please keep your comments coming.
Yeah, keep the comments coming.
Hi everyone, let's talk about why digital twins are going to be so important and the changes in the building and real estate market that are driving owners. So what is a digital twin? Well, if you go to the digitaltwinconsortium.org website and go to their initiatives, you'll see the definition of a digital twin. Theirs is a little wordy, but the main thing is that it's a virtual copy of a built asset in the cloud so that it is always accessible, and it can be used to simulate predicted futures of the asset because it has knowledge of process and of the real-time historical data of things that are in the systems in the building. And they also published this thing called the Capabilities Periodic Table that basically is a map of all the things that digital twins can be used for. I'm not going to get into this, but I wanted to just point you to it in case you're interested in doing some research on your own. First off, there's really 2 approaches in the market to changing the construction delivery system. The existing system is based on brokered trade-based labor. So that's what we consider the current system of general contractors and subcontractors, with the general contractors serving as brokers of the subcontractor labor and sometimes using their own direct labor to self-perform certain things. And that system is what we call engineer to order. It's designed for that project and executed for that project. And to the extent that it is used on any other project, it's because somebody has taken a design that was engineered for one site and then readapted it to another site. The other approach is modular delivery, which is rethinking the construction process into chunks with standardized interfaces between them so that you can swap the chunks out with different suppliers in the supply chain. You can think about a bathroom pod as an example of modular construction. When we talk about modular, we're not talking about trailers or anything like that, like you might have thought of modules in the 80s and 90s. We're talking about assemblies that can be popped in that don't require a different trade sequencing to do them. So modular delivery, a bathroom pod, it has all of the interface points for electricity, water, air. And so that's why it's considered a module. Now, McKinsey and Company did a report called The Next Normal in Construction. And in that analysis, which came out a couple of years ago, but it caught a lot of attention among owners and large general contractors, they predicted that 25% of the total volume of construction was going to shift to modular delivery over a period of the next several years. The timing's harder to predict, but there's such a large financial incentive that they predicted that this move would happen as part of improving the construction process to make it more sustainable. If you look at what they said in that report, now there's a lot of text here, and I'm not going to read it to you, but what they said was up to 45% of incumbent value may be at stake in the parts of the market that are going to be changed by these shifts. And for instance, hotel construction, which can be highly modularized. So, given the fact that the construction market is roughly $11 trillion now and growing, that is a massive amount of value that can be put up to play for disintermediating certain players and to the benefit of other players. So in the last several years, I've been working with large contractors and a lot of large owners to see how this shift is going to happen and applying different technologies to it. And I'll try and explain a little bit of it, because this is what's driving the use of digital twins. It's not so much that everybody wants to do more BIM or more VDC. It's that there's this big financial incentive to try and make the construction process more efficient, not only for productivity and profit benefit, but also because it produces less carbon and results in much higher sustainability outcomes. So I won't get into all of this diagram, but basically, if you look at the way buildings are delivered and you look at the steps along building delivery, there are certain steps that lend themselves to configurators, and I've called out 3 of them. At the concept phase, using a site configurator; at the building layout, using a building configurator; and at the assembly selection, using a product configurator. I won't get into what all those are. Those will probably be territory for a future challenge. But I will point you to this very recent article in Catalyst magazine, where you can see the link here on the slide. And that article gets into, and even some of my work in this area, in applying things like bathroom pods, using, in this case, the Dassault Systems technology to modularize construction, and calls out some examples like the data center work and other work. So enough said on that. If you want to research more, go take a look at the article, and feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn if you're looking for even more info there. But what I will say is that in the McKinsey report, they also did a large survey of industry professionals, and these professionals saw the number 1 driver is the shortage of skilled labor. The number 2 driver is reducing costs through increasing productivity, because the costs are out of control because of the amount of rework, which we identified in day 3 of the challenge, and the fact that sustainability regulations are going to get more strict, and this waste is going to be mandated at some point, and the leading companies want to get ahead of it now so that they don't have their operations disrupted when these mandates eventually are enacted. So those 3 areas are really, I think, a proof point for what we're talking about: owners trying to improve either the trade-based process in the engineer-to-order delivery model of construction, or moving to modular, the way the article in Catalyst describes. Either way, both are going to use digital twins. When you look at where the profit pool is, you can see that obviously construction has different sectors. We're talking about the real estate sector for commercial and residential versus civil infrastructure versus industrial. You can see the largest pool at stake is in the real estate sector. So this is why potentially the owners you are working with are so interested in getting ahead of this, because they see a massive disruption coming in the value pools of the real estate market. And it's pretty obvious that digital twins will be the organizing device to reorder the way and the how of the construction, whether it's engineer-to-order trade-based processes or whether it's modular delivery processes. That digital twin is going to be crucial in understanding how to move to that new process, and collaboration is critical in order to get this productivity improvement. It was the number 1 thing that the contractors in the FMI survey cited. So we've shown you, for instance, how you can start to close the gap by using this tool that Joel and I discussed yesterday, the sustainability readiness reporting that you can get from your BIM data on your project. And this is how you get to what I would describe as an escalation model for applying digital twins on a project. The first step of digital twin usage is data quality readiness. If you don't have the data that's needed to actually make a useful digital twin, You have to understand where the gaps are and get the data in there. Otherwise, you don't have a digital twin. You just have a bunch of garbage. It's garbage in, garbage out. So this is why we created this readiness report, so that you would understand, is the data you have on your project going to be useful for first sustainability purposes, and then in the future, as we add more capabilities to this, pre-construction planning, construction execution, those sorts of cases. The next step is engineering simulation, actually using that twin. So once you have the readiness and you can then start doing the analysis, then you can actually get some engineering results. So for instance, one of the first things we might do after this challenge is put in an engineering analysis outcome, like say daylighting, and get a daylighting report out of the project data. The next would be in construction and assembly execution. So for instance, Vim has built-in clash detection, and we can do pre-construction readiness and some other things that are very useful post-design in the construction world, now that we know that we have complete models to go and work from. And we've also discussed the gap between the BIM model, the VDC model, and what makes a digital twin. We definitely think that machine learning and other approaches to filling in those gaps are going to be applied to enrich the model, to make it that complete model of the parts with the SKUs that have to be ordered and installed, so that that gap is going to get closed over time, so that the assembly execution can happen in a predictable manner. And it's also going to leverage AR the way that we've described, using the glasses that we showed you on Amazon, with some of the coming apps. Once this data pipeline is better understood and the data quality coming through it is improved. The last step is going to be using the digital twin in operations. And for that, I wanted to just touch on this. And in the next video, we're going to show you how to do this readiness report, so you can start to get your data ready for digital twin usage and get in the first step of this escalation model, so that you can create digital twins to provide this value to your owners. Let's talk about going all the way into operations, what that might look like. There's a couple things here. The first is structured data. That's what comes out of BIM. BIM has knowledge of what's in the building and how the things are connected together. And so it has knowledge of systems. And that's very, very useful when you try and get into a digital twin of a building, where you might be putting sensors in to track how the building is running, especially if you've got operable daylighting systems or other things like that. That is very useful to have in a digital twin, and that's one of the things that owners would like to take from the design data that's currently sitting in a silo and not being used downstream. We deal with a lot of large owners all the time. I think I mentioned in a previous video that one of those owners told us that they don't trust the data they get from design because they don't have this data quality measurement. And so they recreate the model, the entire model, at procurement every time. We think that's a shame. And even though they recreate the model, they leave out a lot of the engineering and design data. So that's not a complete model either. It might be a good model for their procurement purpose, but it's not a digital twin, because now they've lost all that data that was done during design and engineering. So we think this readiness measurement is super crucial in making sure that the data is not just wasted and can really provide benefit to the owners and be a feather in your cap for having them do repeat work with you. That is on the structured data side. The other thing that's happening is just the scanning of existing buildings for use in operations. When you combine the scan data with the structured data, you can make a very rich digital twin of a building that can be used for simulating the systems in that building, predicting failures of things like water pumps in those systems, and can be used for training and capturing the operation of the building, which is super important, because as those building engineers and operators retire, their knowledge is lost. And so part of this is capturing their knowledge into a virtual system that can be used to train new staff long after those veteran building engineers have left the workforce. To this, I'm just going to give you a little quick look at ATOS Operate. And I'm just going to show you the use of digital twins for doing training. So this is ATOS Operate is a training platform for building operators and engineers. In this case, they're showing you about this chiller. And if we click the first question, it's going to say, identify what this part is. So you can imagine that if you're moving around a space, let's see, I believe this is I don't know anything about these things, but it's the oil filter. Okay. What outside am I? All right. So, after the training, this quiz can be used to validate whether an operator sufficiently understands what they've been trained on. And the other thing to note is we are training them on the equipment in the space where they actually work. So this is a very useful environment for familiarizing the maintenance crew with the actual equipment in the actual building that they're in. So hopefully this gives you an understanding of what it's like to use digital twins, VR, potentially AR, and VR-based learning environments to be able to capture that knowledge that right now is becoming a scarce resource for these owners. Please tune in to the next video where Joel is going to show you how to take your existing project data and turn it into one of these readiness reports so you can see how you fare relative to all of the baselines that we've implemented. And we will, at the end of that video, discuss the scoring methodology in case you are a BIM expert and you're interested in understanding how we arrived at the scores.